Oh god. I don't know what it is to have adversity. I have never known the true problems and complications that arise from serious events unfolding around you, or to have inner conflict with yourself. It's never been called upon me to make sacrifices for a greater purpose, and I've never been prompted to make others do the same. Many of us have the liberty of being born into a position where we don't need to decide between life and death, gain or loss. Growing up, I had an awkward time of it. It wasn't that it was hard necessarily, but that it was inconvenient. Growing up itself was annoying. I was one of those charming kids who was a lot more mature for his age, easily blending in with crowds of adults if they didn't know otherwise. I couldn't easily relate to my friends, however. They'd look at things in their collective way, and I always had my outsider perspective. It never did me any good. I was the kid who you'd respect because he's so well behaved and can understand your big boy talk. I acted well above my age. But when it was time that I did come of age, and it was expected of me, I lost all power. Getting older, my output on life became more bleak. Many call that a phase, but I didn't pay it much mind. It felt correct for the time. After that happened, though, I realized that there wasn't any reason to be mopey and sad about whatever my situation was, or how I looked at things. So I tried to be more upbeat about everything. It took me years to get over that hump of moodiness. Afterwards, I just completely phased out. I didn't pay attention to anything. I warped myself into my own little world. The benefit of being contained is that you don't need to pay heed to what's outside. I had myself and the things I wanted. Finally, I could live without care. But that's a false reality, and it came tumbling down on me eventually. I had a gnawing feeling in the back of my head that wouldn't go away, and made me wake up to the fact that I wasn't fulfilling the role I was supposed to be. I was asleep for, really, the first 14 years of my life. It took a single second in a day for something to click in my head and wake me up. Since then, I've maintained a steady course. However, my outlook on life is still changing. First I was self-centered, then I was altruistic, then I was a smartass, then I became hopeful. But now I've felt like I've become finalized, being upset. I feel like everyone in life wants a hero. Some want to be the hero in their life, some don't, and they merely want to shake hands with the hero. But everyone wants that person, or that icon, that rises above the norm, the one that breaks reality apart and becomes larger than life. My hope was that I could just sit back and let someone else do that. When I had laid out my aspirations on the table for my life, what it was I planned to do, I kept it simple. I kept it achievable. And then the big problem was that I achieved it. And suddenly, my life was without meaning. No longer could I motivate myself to do anything, for my own personal benefit or otherwise. After that, I realized that I only had one option left. I'd have to be the hero. There simply were no other alternatives. But when one tries to be, they'd better be prepared and be able to understand the ramifications of taking such a course. When you don't, you become a cataclysm of destitute. You'll affect the world in extreme ways, and typically for the worse if you don't control yourself. I've never become addicted to a substance. I don't know what the challenges are in rivaling with it, the route of continuing to feed yourself, or to hold back and recover from it. I don't know how much of that owns you and how much of it controls the realm you reside in. The reason why I don't understand it and never will is because I never chose to be. I've never felt remorse or pity when I see those afflicted. I only feel dread. A siphon on the world, one who has engorged themselves. I don't claim to understand what it takes to defy what's in front of you. How do people rise above the challenge and face off gods? Willpower alone can't see you through that. There's gotta be some other essence. Purpose is a strong one I've always known about. When someone lacks purpose, they start to self-destruct real quick like. I've only ever had one person close to me taken away from my life. And when they were gone, I didn't feel the least bit different. I was surrounded by my peers who all told me how I was supposed to be feeling. But the only emotion I could drum up was being annoyed. I didn't grieve. I merely ignored. The living were a lot louder than the dead. If a loved one was suddenly taken from me, though, would I react a little differently? If I did, would it be healthy? If you had all the chances in the world to save the one person who mattered most to you, you'd take it, right? Or would you just walk away if the challenge was too big? Why would you walk away, though? Don't you want to be strong for that one person? I could never imagine myself in a situation where I prioritized being weak on purpose. It's one of the most selfish things you can do. Many have said I talk way too much about things I don't understand. but I got real tired of hearing that really quickly. I've been talking about the same stuff since I was a youngling. How old must I be before someone says I'm licensed to discuss it? I would have been entertained if I was still a child. But being an adult, now I'm simply told off. How much do you let other people's experiences and perspectives influence yours? Are you just a stone pillar who won't bend, or are you open to adopting and adapting what you hear about? Wait, what was I talking about again? Right. I've never had any real trouble with doubting myself. I've known my limits, and I'm confident in what it is I do know. I get tired when people try to tell me otherwise. I'm open to debate, but when someone makes it a one-sided discussion, that's when I start thinking I should just punch them in the teeth and get it over with. That doesn't solve a ton, does it? Becoming a monster is a fear of the hero. He knows he has great power, but to misuse that, or to not appropriate its capabilities, can invite disaster. Not only to himself, but those around him. Not even the apathetic hero among us wants conflict to escalate to the point of no return, for that very well enforces that all local parties have to start getting involved. I'm curious if self-sacrifice can really invite more potential power into a being, especially if it's physical and could end up resulting in clearly a disadvantageous position to the hero. Does sacrificing parts of yourself really open up to realms of possibilities, even if your direct power to interact is diminished? Finally, when someone has all the correct intentions, does it matter what his methods are? Or is judge a man not by his intentions, but by his result more correct? If the ultimate equation is settled, if the end goal has been reached and has achieved the best outcome, was it any good in the end? Ultimately, maybe none of this matters. We don't live in a world of fantasy. Merely, it's a world of restrained fiction. And for some of us, that's a little too boring. The chance of any of us dealing with a story that goes well beyond the realm of possibility is null. If there's a world that none of us are aware of that's moving right as we speak, we're probably never going to see it within our lifetimes. This is probably why we invented video games, to try and simulate the ego in these environments. It's a realm where we survive some grand cataclysmic catastrophe, band together with whoever remains, strike out and try to preserve ourselves as best as we can, to live with any sliver of hope possible, and just when things seem like they might normalize, the pure essence of hope appears right in front of you, and all hell breaks loose because of it, or perhaps because man wasn't ready. But the hero tries to fight above it. His belief is stronger in his own determination. If he truly can reside above the rest, then maybe his own interpretation of events is the better one, regardless if it's the correct one. He sets out, he'll stop at nothing and by no one until he reobtains the flicker of hope that he held so close. No obstacle is too grand to stop him from the course, all except himself. And that's what happens. You yourself are your own limiter. It's a sleazy line they teach you in school, but it's an accurate one. Then it starts becoming a numbers game. What starts becoming the best outcome to events? When people are brought to the chopping block who deserve to live and die, what is the advantage to the choices presented before you? How do you personally go about doing it? Why do some retreat to the wilds and commune with nature for sanctity? How come others need to drown their sorrows to cope with pain? What drives one to commit to occupations designed for others whom are no longer available? Why rotate in barrels for some fucking reason? What allows people to give their faith into a power they can't hope to understand? Where does one have to come from to act as a god and manipulate others' lives? Why be a guy who writes a bunch of signposts everywhere? When you finally reach the prize you've been dying to get a hold of, and it rejects you, do you just willingly stop? Or have you come too far to fail? When you've beaten every insurmountable odd, and you finally stand at the brink of the end of the story, do you reflect on what's happened? Or just proceed forward even more? Lisa isn't a game about trying to rescue a little girl. It's a game about a broken man who can't come to terms with himself and makes all of his problems everyone else's. His actions cause all these events to unfold the way they do. It doesn't matter if it's because he doesn't know any better, or that he thinks what he's doing is right. Almost all that he commits to is completely arbitrary over the course of the game. He has a single goal in mind, and everything that comes along with it only seeks to hinder him in some way. And his response to it is always damaging. It never heals anything. And even if the opportunity presents itself to be altruistic, it still only ends up with him losing something. Even when a land becomes a hellhole, it takes the one with courage and honesty to stay above the pack. But that's a near impossible goal. It's like having a pacifist in a town full of killers. His moral code is practically on par with godhood now, but that's not going to do him any good in the practical sense. The one who commits to action is the one who gets things done, but that's not always for the better. Don't let these decisions even be a reflection of yourself, because that doesn't matter. You're not in control of anything in this. It's a painful journey. It's not meant to be pleasant. I regret all choices I ever make in life. Doesn't matter if they were the right ones or not. I never feel good about it in the end. This isn't limited to my life. This involves me and my games as well. But this is Brad's journey. Not mine, not yours. So make yours better. game is fucking good, mechanics are fun to play with, very impressive for an RPG Maker game.